Welcome to Building Bigfoot. My name is Jonathan Whiting. I'm the co-founder of Street Text. The name Building Bigfoot is it comes from the idea that if you are venture backed and you're building this business and it grows, it's a unicorn. Great, but what about the rest of us? You know, we're building businesses, we're bootstrapped, we're you got to be smart. You got to be conscientious of where your dollar goes and the impact that you're making from that. You just have to be smarter. You have to play differently. And so the whole concept of building Bigfoot is that if you do something and you're building it bootstrapped and you have great success, well, it's not a unicorn, it's a Bigfoot. With that, welcome to this amazing episode. I'm really excited about it. So this is Aiden. Aiden has got a pretty wild story, which we'll get into in a bit, and is an incredibly talented videographer. And he'll actually go into some of the really good strategic tips that will take your video game from, let's say, wherever it is, just to that next level. And there will be something here for everybody to learn and take away from. And so I'm very excited to get into it with Aiden. We're going to start with story and then dive in. All right, with that, let's go. Let's go. For anybody who doesn't know, Aiden is amazingly talented at video. And if you've seen any of the feature films that we've done where we've been either myself or Ira or one of the team videos, it's been Aiden who's been the guy who's put it together, and he has this amazing ability to do very, very good quality video while at the same time tell a story. And I remember the first time we met, Aiden, you shared this video that you had done, which was of your grandfather and fishing. And that video connected with me on so many levels that I knew. I was just like, wow, you've got so much talent. This is a truly good story and a good storyteller. And so I think what would be really cool in this episode number one, is to really dive into your story, because it's about telling stories. But then also we'll dive into a little bit about what are some of the best tips that you can implement into your own video that are easy to do with the tools that you already have on hand, as I think that would be really, really, really useful. So Aiden, why don't you quickly introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for the introduction. My name is Aiden Feddersen, and I live in beautiful Okanagan Valley. I'm a full-time videographer and photographer, and it was something that kind of wasn't exactly planned. I kind of just got into it, just filming and doing photos with friends, and I just loved the process. I love being able to go out, and it pushed me to go out in times that I didn't really have to or want to necessarily, but it pushed me to do things that were uncomfortable, go on camping trips that were very spontaneous, and definitely looking back at it were times that I look back at as being like my favorite memories of high school, of just being out and just wanting to go take photos, and just puts me in an uncomfortable situation, but those are the best memories I have. And then one of my buddies was actually a videographer as well, and kind of went on a couple shoots with him. And right then and there, I fell in love with the process and fell in love with going out and meeting new people, and then meeting people like Jonathan. And there's just so much value that comes out of the work that I do, and that's kind of why I continue to do it. Is not necessarily going out and making the photos and the video, but just even the connections and the friendships that you do make. And yeah, that's kind of why I continue to do it, and it's a hobby I get to do every single day of my life. So yeah, it's been great. Just the idea of being able to do or to tell a story was basically like the biggest thing, and not necessarily a story that just resembles with you, but I think that there's so many memories that I have and so many memories that you would have, Jonathan, that are emotional and that can connect with you. And that's what I like to do, is like when I go into someone's work or place of business, and I really like to hear them out and hear what they do, and just to hear their story, because everyone has their own story and has their own everyday life and own way of doing things. And that story is so powerful. And I think that's just like the biggest thing is going in and telling that story.
So when I met you, you were in Kelowna, and then uh, and then you were working on some of the projects, and you're like, "Hey, I've got this thing. I'm going to go in Hawaii for a few months, so I'm going to be working on some of your projects in the background." And so I was like, "Oh, that's great, no problem." And off you go. And when you get to Hawaii, I get this email, and and it was sort of like, "Hey, I'm in the hospital," and I just remember reading this email and thinking, "Wow, this is bad. This is really bad," and being sort of taken back by what I was reading, and being scared for you. And so I just stopped, and I remember at that moment, I just stopped and prayed, and I didn't really know what to do, but I just thought, man, I want to see like you get through this. So why don't you share a little bit about why you went to Hawaii, what was going on there, and then what happened?
Yeah, um, I think the biggest thing was I was wanting to go to Hawaii and basically just it was a Christian university that I was going to, but I was going there. It's called YWAM, Youth with a Mission, and I was going there to basically volunteer my time and work there. But in exchange, I would get free stay and free food, and everything else of like living there was free. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm gonna go live in Hawaii, right on the beach, basically, and everything was great. And so I kind of prayed about it, thought about it for a long time, and I just went for it. I was like, I'm young. I'm just gonna live it up and just go. And so I did, and I was supposed to be there for 3 months, and 2 months into my 3 month journey, I was on a moped riding home from campus onto where I was staying, and me and my friend Reagan were actually on this moped riding home, and a car was making a left-hand turn on the highway, trying to cross the intersection, and didn't see us, and completely sideswiped us. And so I went through the windshield and like cut up my face really bad. You probably can't really see it. And then as I was in a sitting position, my right leg got pushed back, which dislocated and broke my pelvis, which is my hip, and then I also shattered my kneecap, and then broke a bunch of fingers, and it was really scary. I was just completely, it was like the movies where my ears were ringing. All I remember seeing were flashing lights and high beams and lights and people over top of me yelling, "Are you okay?" Or I'm just like, clearly not. I'm not okay. And people were just like, "Stay awake, stay awake." And it was very surreal, because I remember opening up my eyes and not knowing what was going on and not knowing what was going to happen, if I was going to survive. I had no idea what state I was in, had no idea what had happened. And I just remember like sitting there and knowing that there was only one thing I knew that I could do. And I was just remember like, God, give me peace and walk this journey with me. And that was like the biggest thing that really set my accident afoot. Like I knew that that was like how things were going to start, and I knew that I needed to lean on God's understanding and not my own. And yeah, I just remember praying that, and it was like an instant sense of peace that you're going to be okay, but this is going to be a long journey. And I didn't know what that meant, didn't know what that felt like. But I remember like the cut here went right across here, right across my eyelid. So I wasn't able to open this eye. My jaw was kind of dislocated as well. So I couldn't really talk, couldn't really do anything. But I remember like trying to open my eyes as much as possible and just see where Reagan was, and the girl that was on the moped. And she was like way further ahead. And I'm like, what happened? So I remember trying to like call her name and ask how she was doing. And she was just lying on the side of the road too. And I was freaking out like, is she okay? Is she okay? And it was just like this really scary time of uncertainty of what was going to happen. And I think that, yeah, it was just leaning on, yeah, my faith and seeing how God was going to work in this, but also just to, yeah, I mean, I didn't have any control with what was going on. I tried to move, I couldn't move. I was in so much pain, and yeah, it was a moment of my life that I'll definitely never forget, and it's a moment that yeah, it made me realize how precious and how quickly life can change. I was conscious for the whole thing, which is crazy because um, I had no helmet on, which is another crazy thing. Was I had no brain injury, no brain damage, no nothing. I remember everything. I think I was like kind of like knocked out, minor concussion for like a split second. So I remember seeing like the headlights coming straight for me. We bought the moped brand new, and at the dealership they don't even sell helmets. Like that's how crazy it is. And so yeah, for me to like not have any brain injury, I mean, going through the windshield is nuts. So yeah, it was kind of crazy for sure. But I did remember seeing the ambulance come, and it was really weird. Like I like hit the windshield. I didn't go through it necessarily. My face hit the windshield, and then I kind of like bounced off again. Cool. I do have photos of the moped though, and the moped was pretty pretty broken up. That's another crazy story, is she was perfectly fine. Like the car was right in front of us, and the moped hit straight on right in the front right side of the car. And she was behind me, and the moped actually like kicked up, and she flew over top of the car and just landed on the ground, and she had some bruising on her leg, but that was it. So I definitely took the blow of the hit, and that was that.
You're sitting down, you're in front of the car, and or beside it or behind it. You're lying there. You don't really know what's going on. So when does the ambulance come? How does that
The
get there?
ambulance, the ambulance was there like so quickly. It was actually crazy. I think I was only there for 2 minutes maybe, which then I got into the ambulance. Reagan was in the ambulance as well. I got rushed over towards I was on Kona, so the big island of Hawaii. I got rushed over to that hospital, which then I was fully scanned. They were like doing MRIs on my head, and trying to figure out what was wrong, trying to see a full list of all these things that were wrong and all these things. And that was one of the most scary things, was just the doctors over top of me, like literally like the movies, the big bright light, and then 5 or 6 doctors and nurses all over top of me, feeling my leg, feeling all my like ribs, making sure nothing else was broken, and they're literally just listing off all these things that are wrong, which was terrifying. I was just like, and no one was really talking to me because I was kind of out of it as well. And so the one doctor that finally talked to me, he's like, "Are you conscious enough to understand me?" And I'm like, "Yes. What's wrong?" And he just started. There was like probably 10 things that they were saying were wrong, and like broken fingers, all the lacerations done to my face. So I had I had like 300 stitches done to my face in the end. So all of here on my nose. They were like, "You possibly might be blind in your left eye." I had a dislocated and then broken pelvis, and then my knee, and then yeah, just the list continued, and it was terrifying. And I was at that point I was by myself, and it was just me. And they found out that, they then sent me into another room where they were like, "We're gonna need to put you under and try to put your hip back in place." And so they went for it, and they were extremely quick, which was crazy. So they put me under. They cleaned out my face while I was under. They cleaned out my knee, which my knee was actually an open fracture. So it broke vertically, which is kind of unheard of. Usually kneecaps always break horizontally, but it broke vertically. They cleaned that all out, and then they also put my hip back in place while I was out, and so I was back up, and or not up, but like I was awake again. And some of my good friends were able to come into the hospital and come and see me before I got medevaced over to Honolulu, which is their big main hospital in Hawaii. So I got rushed over to them. which then I got sent in for emergency surgery. And at this point, my parents had barely even been contacted. My parents had no idea what was going on. My friend of a friend of a friend got in contact with my parents and said Aiden has been in a serious accident, and that was it. My parents were like, "What is going on? Is he still alive?" Like, it was very uncertain. And so yeah, got rushed in for surgery. For I think it was 4 hours, they were stitching up my face, 4 or 5 hours. And because it's on your face needs to be, they were kept saying your face needs to be awake. And I was like, I don't know what that means. But so they couldn't actually put me asleep for it. So I was awake the entire time. And they just kept like freezing my face and then doing some stitches, and then the freezing would go away and it would hurt so much, but they kept going, going, going. So it was like 4 hours, something like that, of just stitching my face. And then I got rushed in for surgery on my hip and my knee. And then the first surgery I went into for that, they told me I may never walk again. And that was the most terrifying thing I've ever been told, because I'm a very like active person, always out doing something, always on some sort of adventure. And that to me was like, my life is going to be completely radically changed after this. And yeah, that part was just terrifying. So yeah, I don't know, kind of just went into it with an open mind and tried to just see the best in things. But I mean, all things considered, I mean, it's almost a year now, and I'm out doing all the things I love doing, which is a complete blessing.
Yeah, so your like face has healed remarkably well. It's insane. You know, if you can see you on the
Mm,
video, it's really impressive. Like when you see the befores and like where you're at now. I wonder if when they were stitching you up, I
mm-hmm.
wonder if they were trying to keep you awake because it's like we have muscles in our face, and the way our face expressions
Yeah.
change when we're asleep versus awake. If you were stitched up when you were asleep, maybe if you were to be awake, you would see lines or you'd see creases. I'm wondering if that was part of it. You know, for most people who are listening to this, especially if you're in any kind of profession where you are the face of your business, like a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, having your face, like 300 stitches in your face, would be terrifying. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big deal.
Yeah,
And then
it was a lot for
and
sure.
then to have the question of whether or not you'll be able to like move again or move properly, and the fact that you might have been blind, like that is you're hitting what a terrible terrible situation. So but you're
Mm-hmm.
but something that's really interesting, you know, as you were sharing the story with me, you know, even I'm hearing new details even as we're talking on this, like this is crazy. um your your mindset during this whole process is something unusual because when you were sharing this, I remember you saying to me things along the lines of like, the surgeon I had was such a blessing. The way that my knee healed was such a
Mm.
blessing. The way that the fracture happened was such a blessing. The way that they were able to stitch up my face was such a blessing. And I was like, what? Who is this guy? Who is this person? Where do you get this where does this mindset come from? And uh, can you share a little bit about that and sort of like what was your outlook going through there? And how do you think it's maybe impacted the recovery process?
Totally. I think that there's a couple things where I had a lot of my friends and family go through a lot of crazy times and a lot of crazy things that were really sucky. And there were a lot of things that I noticed from them as just being in a positive attitude, and how they overlooked those crappy situations really not only helped them through the situation, but also I think was a huge impact on the people that were impacted as well. And I know that there were a lot of people in my life that were impacted through this whole ordeal. And so, yeah, that was a big thing for me, was just like, I need to have a good attitude through this. And a lot of people that have had, like, my uncle, for example, was in a really bad car crash when I was really little. And he would probably still look back at it as being one of the hardest things he's ever gone through, but he definitely had a different mindset, and he was like, this sucks, this is like the worst thing that could have happened to me. And I know he hates thinking about his accident. He hates thinking about what he had gone through and how alone and how he felt. Um, and for me, like I felt like I knew that that was one way that I could have reacted and one way that I could have um, taken everything, but I knew that I didn't want that. I didn't want to look back at it, at this accident, as being one of the worst things that happened to me. I wanted to look back at it as being, this is this is something that can propel me to be a better person in a lot of different ways. And I think that it really woke me up from maybe ways that I was living, or like there's a lot of goals now that I've kind of set in place, that I want to be a better person, and not just like mentally, and like being able to like I had great friends and family that supported me and all that type of stuff. But I think even just like moving on with this accident, I learned so much. And I'm like, how can I move forward in life just a better person mentally, physically, and spiritually, was just like the biggest thing. And like now I like work out every single day, and I've not only just to get myself back in a place where I'm able to do the things that I used to love doing, but also to be in better shape than I've ever been in before. And it's crazy. Like it's been less than a year, and I'm already able to run a 5K, which is crazy to me because I wasn't able to do that before. But just being able to like push myself, and I know that I had like going through the accident. It's a lot of just mindset, and it's a lot of just a mental game. And I think it's the same thing with working out, and it's the same thing with a lot of things in life, that you have to push yourself through uncomfortable situations. And working out and pushing yourself is just that. Like you're pushing yourself through very uncomfortable situations where your legs are extremely sore and you're out of breath, and you're just wanting to get off that treadmill or get off that run and just sit down, but you just push through. And it's a lot. Yeah, I've learned a lot through that. And I think that yeah, I know my life is going to be very, very different moving forward.
Yeah, that's powerful. And when you're running now, do you experience pain in your legs?
Yes and no. It gets very like my leg gets very stiff from like sitting down and not doing anything. So like a little bit, but I think like once I start running and I start walking and hiking and stuff, my leg loosens up. And when I go on a hike and stuff, like I still notice that my leg is pretty weak. I mean, I went through a lot of trauma, and it's less than a year, so it's going to take a little while to get that muscle back. But like all things considered, I think, yeah, like my doctor and my physio say that you're probably always going to have just a little bit of pain and discomfort, but that's the least of my worries right now. It's just I want to be able to do the things that I love to do.
Wow. So when you hear that and someone says, you know, always, what goes through your mind?
Sorry, what do you mean?
So, like a doctor, when they look at you and they say, you know, we think you might be blind, we think you might not be able to walk again, we think you may not be able to do these things. How does your brain process that information? Because clearly you're doing the very things that they said you wouldn't be.
I think like those things terrified me so much that I was like, if I have anything to do with it and any say in this, that is not going to be the case. And they told me that I was going to have drop foot. It was like a 90% chance that I was going to have drop foot, which is basically being able to like stand on a flat surface and be able to like lift myself, or even be able to drive, or anything like that. I wouldn't be able to like move my foot up and down. Which basically means that I would have to have a splint on for my whole life. It's like basically a little boot, a plastic boot thing that would just hold my foot up. And I've never had that before. I've never never had an issue like within that, which is crazy. Is like that was like one of the first things that I got movement back in, is because as soon as I heard that, I was trying so hard every single day. I would sit in a chair after my surgeries, and I was in the hospital for like 3 weeks. And I remember sitting in my chair and just like closing my eyes and just picturing my leg moving again. And there was one instance where it actually did, and it did move again. And I'm like, holy crap, it's going to be fine. And ever since that day, I was like, man, if you just put your mind to something, you can push through a lot of things that could be said that couldn't be possible. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like having that mindset that you're able to do it.
That's wild. Now you're a solopreneur, so basically you have a video business
Hmm.
that is your livelihood. It's your career. It's your passion. It's all these things. You're also a photographer, and you're very good at these things. What's happening to your business while you're in the hospital?
Yeah, I think, I mean, because the business is basically just me, but I did have people that I would reach out to help me. There were definitely clients that I did have that I was supposed to be back and working after December. Like I was supposed to be back from YWAM and back home and kind of full swing and back into work, and that was just not the case and not possible. And so I definitely had a lot of my friends that are in the same career and same work. They were able to step in and fill that in for me, which was another crazy thing that I've noticed in the career that I'm in is usually in like big cities like Vancouver or Calgary, there's a lot of people that do what I do, but they're all very competitive. And everyone's trying to like one up the other person, and it's not like that here in Kelowna that I've noticed. And everyone's kind of here to support each other and just love on each other, and yeah, just help out really. So yeah, they completely stepped in and they were able to like just take over what I wasn't able to do, and yeah, it was great.
That's really cool. There's two things I think that come from that. One is that abundance mindset, is knowing that there's more than enough for everyone.
Mm,
And the nature of goods and services, people forget this, which is the goods and services increase year after year. So, in other words, if we work together, there's actually more than there was the year before. So, not only is there more than enough for everyone, but as we collaborate and we collectively share and work together and help each other, there we're actually creating abundance, and we're creating abundance in increasing measure. So it's funny. It's one of those things where the fact that you've got that around you, that is very cool. Now, that probably does say a little bit about who you are and the kind of people that you are going to naturally gravitate towards or also attract towards you, just because of your own giving nature. So what what did, like, when did you start getting back into your field?
that's a good question. I believe it was February 1st that I was finally able to, because of the whole accident and stuff. I was under ICBC claim, or like an ICBC, like I had to not work, and because I had so much treatment that I had to go through, and so there's a period there where I probably could have started working, but I just didn't because I wasn't really able to. But I think it was February 1st where I was kind of like, this is your first day of you're able to go back to work and get back into things. But that was not not necessarily back to like what I was able to do before. Like I wasn't able to walk very well. I'm pretty sure I was still on 75% weight bearing, so I wasn't actually able to walk without crutches still. And no, like like nothing crazy. Like it was literally, if I walked without crutches, it'd be literally walking on flat surface through my kitchen, and that was it. Like I wasn't able to do much of like the action stuff or filming for car commercials or filming with you guys and running on a track or doing anything like that. It was very just like editing and a lot of admin work of just emails, and I kind of use that time really to reach out to new clients and to just say, hey, this is the situation I'm in. I'd love to start working with you when I'm able to. And I think I like landed like 6 or 7 new clients just by emailing people during the time I wasn't able to do anything, and that was really cool. So yeah, I think it's just like using the time you do have, and yes, you can go through a crappy situation where maybe you're not able to walk or you sprain your ankle, and there's times where, oh, I can't work right now, but there's a lot of back end stuff that you can be doing, and that's what I did.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. So I'm so grateful that you have made such an amazing recovery, and uh, your story is inspirational, uh, and so it's one of those things where you know so you have a plan. You're going to go back to Hawaii here, right?
So my year after my accident is November 19th. That was the day of my accident, and I'm actually going back to my accident scene a year after. So I'm creating a documentary that I'm of my whole accident to tell the whole story, and a lot of people supported me, and I'd love to be able to have or be able to tell that story in a unique way. So that's what I'm going back to do.
Oh, that's really that's very cool. I encourage you in that. I think that it's again it is a very it's quite the wild ride. And then to have been on my side of it during the journey, that was something else because you know we're working with you, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, Aiden, like don't worry, like just don't worry about those things. Focus on whatever you got to focus on. But I think I
Hmm.
can't remember the exact. I don't remember the wording of the email, but it was something along the lines of like you just kind of gave us the status like update, almost like what your doctor probably was saying. Like, I don't know, dot 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 dot. My leg, my knee, my hip, my eye, my face, and I was just like, like, what's happened to poor Aiden? You
I know.
just had this crazy accident, and then there's no it's nice to be able to be here and to talk to you and you sharing your side and like how much you've recovered, but in that moment you just don't know, right? You don't know what the
Hmm.
what the outcome's going to be, and I think that your mindset plays such a big role in determining the choices that you later make that moves you towards where you're getting now. And uh so that's super interesting. Now, one thing else that I think would be, we talk about, so uh is being a video guy, and knowing that video is incredibly important to businesses nowadays. Like, it's everything. So it's when you're going and you're communicating now, there's obviously YouTube's becoming more and more prevalent. TikTok is this rising thing. Instagram Reels have just become very dominant in a very short period of time. Video is becoming really prevalent. It's really becoming ubiquitous, and it's also the most personal way you can introduce yourself. Because if you can connect with someone over video, you're not just sharing the words, you're sharing your tonality, your personality, your body language, all the different things that are sort of like the je ne sais quoi of who you are. Really helps come across in a much better way on video. So video is this really powerful tool. So what would be a few tips that somebody can use that would up their video game with the tools that they already have? Like, most people are carrying around with them a smartphone with a really great camera. What would be some things? Maybe like, yeah, let's go through even positioning, angles, where the lighting, what time of day,
Yeah,
just what would be the best practices?
I think it's kind of what we've been saying this whole time is it's not about the gear you do have. And yes, like you can continue to buy the new phone or the new camera or whatever it is, but it's not you can have like a $30,000 camera to a $100,000 camera, whatever it is, but your videos still suck because you don't tell a story. And I think that you can tell and have just as an impactful video with an iPhone. You don't need anything more than that. And I think like that's the biggest misconception. And a lot of people do hear that as like, oh, all you need is an iPhone. And people are like, well, that's not necessarily true. But I think the biggest thing with video and being able to tell a story is just grabbing people's attention. It's the same thing with YouTube, where people struggle with YouTube the most is they start a video where it doesn't grab your attention right away. And I mean, with today's world and everything, how things are going, everything is short form content, and that includes Instagram Reels, TikToks. Everything's like 15 to 30 seconds long on average, and people just don't have the attention span to watch a long video anymore. And so if you do, and you do have a lot of things to say, and you do use YouTube, there are people that do it extremely well. I'll watch a 30-minute YouTube video the other day, and it doesn't feel like 30 minutes at all, but it's because of how they're grabbing your attention. There'll be a good 30 seconds at the beginning of the video where it's like super action-packed. It'll kind of show you little bits of like what the video is going to be about, but it leaves it on a cliffhanger. It's like, I want to watch the rest of this video to be able to get to that answer. And so it's even if you're doing TikTok and Instagram Reels, it's really about creating value for someone. So it's like if you're on camera, so if it's just me, or if it's B-roll or whatever it is, it's just giving someone some sort of value. What is the purpose of watching this video? Is it teaching someone how to do something? That those do really well. So it's even if we're doing what we're doing now. And Jonathan, if you went on TikTok and we're like, are you wanting to record a podcast? Here is how you use it, or here is how you do it. And it gives out like 5 key points. Like that could do very well because people are wanting to do it, but they just don't know how. And so it's really just telling a story, providing value, and then just doing it that way. And I think like the biggest thing is lighting. I mean, for me, like I have a really simple just blue light on my fan kind of right here, which is just a really simple blue light that you can get at Best Buy for like $15. And then I just have a key light, kind of just like this little thing right here, which just takes out from the background, lights me perfect, like really well. It's super simple. Like it's not expensive. It's just using the resources that you do have and just using it to the best of your ability.
So number one, content. So good content captures people's attention, and it's how it's presented. It's like, so you don't want to drag it out. So there's something, what is it about it, say like in the first 30 seconds, like what is it about it, the content that helps keep you engaged? What are some things that you notice?
For me, like I've noticed a lot of TikToks that I have watched recently that people do, just as an example. I mean, there's hundreds of different ways you can do it, but it's even starting the video off with, have you ever thought of how to wash your car the best, or something like those? It's not the best wording, but have you ever wanted to use your Apple Watch for fitness? And then it will be like kind of asking someone a question, but then diving into how to do it or how to do it better. And that's what people, like if you ask a question that people are desiring and people are trying to figure out an answer to, people are most likely going to watch it. And it's like, do you want to know how to make the best coffee, or something like along those lines, where people are like, yeah, I do. And then they continue to watch that video, which then now gets pushed to more people that are looking for the same answer. So it's really just providing someone with that value of just, this is what the video is about right off the get-go. Or it literally could be no words at all, and it could be a 15 to 30 second really quick montage of like really cool clips that's going to be in the 30-second or 30-minute video or whatever it is. But it show people visually what's to come, basically.
I see. So you're introducing a topic.
Yep.
And then immediately you're going into the value of that topic.
Yeah, exactly.
So that whoever's listening doesn't have to wait or delay that sense of reward of actually paying attention to the content. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing you said is lighting. So you think, so the two most important things is content and then lighting. If you're at home and you only have supplies at home and you don't have so you would recommend definitely. So what was that light that you shared?
Well, the light on my fan is literally, I think it's a Philips Hue is what it is, and it might be $30 or something like that. But it's pretty cool because you can literally control it right by your phone. It's all Bluetooth, and you can change the color. Like I can go in here and just change the color to an orange. And now it's just a very different style. But then with this, it's very versatile because it's just a very different look. And if you're doing lots of sit-down videos like this and you just want things to be just a little bit different, you literally just press a button and it changes the color. And it's that simple, which is awesome. And then this little light here, like it's a key light, so basically it just right on my face. It's an Amazon light. It's just an LED light panel, and you can get some for as cheap as like $50. And they're fully RGB, which is basically you can change it to. They have it, I think, is like over 1 million colors. So you can have many different hues of different colors, and you can have like it flash and have different different things if you want it to have like. Yeah, it's just really cool. Like I could completely change this look and have the background as orange, but then my face blue. And and I could do all of those different things for literally less than $100.
That's that's really really helpful. Now, from what would you say is second, or actually, let's say you're filming outside, lighting as well. Like, say you're filming outside. What time of day is best to film?
I mean, if you it depends who you talk to. I would say a majority of the people would say sunrise or sunset, just because it creates the sun is closer to the horizon, which basically will create more depth into your photos or your videos, where it will actually create shadows. So if you have the sun coming from this side, sorry, like kind of like this light here, it's off to the side, it creates a shadow over here where it shows depth to your face. Where if I move my light over here, kind of like right in front, everything is just the same. Which just having that little bit of depth just shows, it just looks a lot better. And it's the same thing of like, even if you can use the sun in very different ways. You can have it as a backlight, so then the person that you're filming is kind of a silhouette, which is a really cool style as well. Depends what you're doing. But then you can also have it as a key light, kind of just like this light here. So yeah, it's just using the light that you have at your disposal. And there's a lot of people that will shoot midday, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. But a nice, really cool tool that a lot of people use, and I use it all the time for video, is called a diffuser. And you can literally order one off Amazon for $20, $30. And you could just search up a 5-in-1 diffuser. And it's basically just this big round sheet basically that you put in front of or in between the sun or whatever light you're using and the subject you're trying to film, and it will basically, instead of a harsh light, it'll basically diffuse the light to make it a lot softer, which then just looks a lot more visually appealing to anyone that's watching, and it's super cheap.
So diffuser. So that's on my list now. So then, from the if you want to do like a real quick, like say you're meeting somebody. Let's say you're in you're a real estate agent, and you've been corresponding a little bit by text message, and you want to introduce yourself because you just know that's the next step of really helping to kind of establish some trust. So you just want to film yourself real quick, send that as a text message. What would be some tips to set that up for just kind of like a really good presentation?
Like visually?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, that's another big thing, is like for even what we're doing here, like audio is super important. If you're a client that you're trying to communicate with, and you have really crappy headphones or something like that, and you're using the mic off that and the audio just sucks, and it's just like super muffled or super high pitch or something like that, it's harder for you to stay focused and to hear that person out. Whereas if you have super crisp audio, I just find it a lot easier to listen to. I mean, you can really set apart someone that is doing podcasts and they have like really high-end equipment, or equipment they know how to use. You can just tell, for me, it's a lot easier to hear. And so it's the same thing for, like even if you're using your phone for the audio. If you have your mic way out here and you're talking to the phone, it's going to sound a lot more muffled. But if you hold your phone really close to your mouth, it's going to sound a lot more crisp, and you're going to be able to understand the person just a lot better, really. So yeah, it's just like little tools like that where I mean, a lot of people have the tools to do what they're wanting to do, but it's just utilizing them to the best of their ability, and just holding it closer to your face and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, like, what if you're say you're out and about? Let's say you're busy, so you're on the road all day, so you don't really have the ability to go home, like have a perfect studio set up. Um, if you're at a restaurant or you can kind of find a quiet spot, what would be some tips of a quick setup?
Okay, it's a very good question. A lot of these different softwares that we use to talk and to record and stuff like that have voice isolation. So like on an iPhone, for example, when you have your mic set up, even when you're on the phone, you can go into your settings and you can have the mic as a voice isolator, sorry, which will basically block out background noise through the mic, through your AirPods. So if you just have AirPods or something like that, you can just pop them in, use voice isolation, and Apple behind the scenes will kind of basically just hear your voice, but then block out everything else. And then even just visually, like for me, like cleaning up the background space, or just not having like too many distractions. Because if you're sitting in a coffee shop and you're in the middle of the coffee shop and there's just people back and forth behind you, if I'm watching that person, I'm going to be like people watching, and I'm just going to see like, ooh, what are they doing? So it's just like trying to have a very still background. Even as I'm like recording this, I notice my fan up in the corner here could be a little distracting to some people. So it's just like little things like that. It's just like trying to, I'm talking to you, and as I'm talking, I'm the person of subject, or like I'm the person that people are trying to focus on. And it's the same thing with you when you're talking, and there's not too many distractions behind you. I mean, there's things that resemble who you are, and like you have staged your background as being you're big into biking, and you like longboarding and cameras and guitar. Like when I look at your background, those are things that I've noticed, which is really cool, because people, if they have a studio or a place where they can set things up, like those things, I know you're an adventurous and outdoorsy person, so that those definitely resemble you. And so it's just like having a setup where, yeah, it's just not distracting, and you could, if you have a studio like that, you can definitely stage it like that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I've moved into this is actually the basement, and I think it's the perfect space for podcasting. I was gonna do it in the office, but then because of the sound here, it just seems like it's working a lot better. And so these are just things that were already there.
Yeah, no, for
These are
sure.
just hanging out in my basement. So that's great that as far as like it looks good. The but again, any tips on that stuff, I will take those and implement them and make sure it levels up.
That's
From
awesome.
If you're recording, do you recommend recording portrait mode or landscape?
That's a good question. It varies depending on where you're wanting to put that content. If you're putting it on TikTok or Instagram Reels, definitely portrait, because that's just how your phone is laid out. So portrait is basically this way. And then if landscape, it's this way. So I think like it depends where you're wanting to put that content. Obviously, if you're doing YouTube, you do landscape, which is because people are watching their videos this way. But portrait, they're doing it this way. So it just really depends on where you're putting that content. Are you putting what like social platform? If you're sending it to someone on an iMessage or a text message or whatever, even portrait, like people, if you click full screen, it's going to go on the full screen. Yeah, it's just like wherever you're planning on putting it, it kind of just resembles how you're going to film it, really.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And then what about like length of time? Because you talked about Reels, Instagram, TikTok, or I guess Reels is Instagram, being that sort of 15 to 30-second sweet spot. Is that what people should be going for, or is it like what would you say?
It definitely varies on your audience. I think as you continue to make content and you continue to do different things, I think it's really important for you to test those different video lengths and to test what's working, what's not working. And you might have videos that literally get 200 views, but then you might get one that gets 50,000 views or something like that. And it's like, what did I do differently in those two? It very well could be just very random, and Instagram or TikTok just decides to push that video, but it could also be the length of the video, the location you're in. There's so many different variables of what can help your video. But yeah, I think like majority of the time, the shorter the video is, the longer people are going to be able to watch it, and the higher chance of people that would watch it again, which then also will push your video. So there's lots of like little things that definitely most social platforms today are pushing short form content. But yeah, like YouTube is obviously a little longer. But now even YouTube, for example, has YouTube Shorts, where it's literally has to be under a minute long. So yeah, it varies for what you're trying to portray and to showcase, but most of the time short form.
I heard something really interesting yesterday, actually. So this guy was talking about he has a bunch of subscribers on his YouTube channel, like 250,000 subscribers. So he's got a big base. And he did a YouTube short, and it got 15 million plays. And he
Mm-hmm.
says this most surprising thing is like, I wish I'd never did that short. And the reason for that, and this shocked me, but it kind of made sense a little bit, is that his audience, his 250,000 subscribers, his audience, they're really targeted. They're in a very much a niche space. But when he did the short, just the way the algorithm works is that the short shows to everybody. So it basically took content that really is designed for a specific audience and put it in front of the general kind of the general public, which meant he got a ton of comments on the and even subscribers for his channel that are just they don't fit. And what he means by that is he said he shared things like one of the comments was like, "Can you believe adults do this kind of thing? Can you believe some of the other comments?" Because he was like tearing something open and I guess he tore it in half and some of the comments are like he deserves that, and it's just like he's like it opened up the world to the trolls. Obviously, 15 million views, you're gonna get a lot of people, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was an interesting observation, which is if you and YouTube in particular, if you want to reach new people, like new traffic, new eyes, maybe Shorts is a really powerful way to do that. And if you want to sort of
Mm-hmm.
stick within your tribe or build out an audience of people who are really following you, maybe long form or the YouTube channel feed, that's really the right medium for it. But he did make an interesting comment because he's got one of those like YouTube plaques, and he said that YouTube is actually working on trying to fix that in their algorithm. They don't like the fact they understand that the shorts has actually become a bit of a challenge for creators.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. So it works really well for people who are wanting that short term entertainment, but it's not so good for the actual person publishing. So, question for
I
you.
think a lot of people try to. Sorry.
Oh no, you go.
Just a quick thing about that is a lot of people that tried to get on Instagram or sorry YouTube Shorts and stuff like that, they'll kind of sway away from what their brand is about and sway away from what they're trying to portray, and they'll try to do something that is trendy or do something like that to get more views. But then um, you can really wreck the what your page is about because a lot of people are going to start following you that aren't actually there for the right reason. Like one of my friends, for example, he does a lot of travel videos and tutorials and stuff like that, and he enjoys F1 racing, and he decided I'm going to create an F1 racing video because he enjoyed it, but it wasn't necessarily on brand with what he did. But he still created it, but the video blew up. It had like 2 million views, which is crazy, and he now looks at it that and he's like, my page is now a huge portion of F1 fans and that's what they're here for. But that's not my brand. That's not who I am. And so you just got to be very on brand, and it's really hard not to sway away from that, but it is pretty important if you're trying to create a brand.
Yeah, no,
But
that
yeah,
makes
sorry.
total sense. And so another question is really around framing yourself. If you're filming, let's say you're on Zoom, or let's say you're, where should you position yourself within that camera, and how should they like? Because I do see a lot of people are moving to video now, especially people who weren't used to or weren't familiar with video, and I don't think it's natural necessarily like where to place yourself.
Yeah, I think like you're the main point of focus on a Zoom call or anything like that. So there's lots of different ways. I mean, like from what I am, I'm right in the middle, center stage, and you are as well. There's lots of other people that might have just a solid background where there's literally just a white or a black or a gray or whatever you want to do. But then so you can kind of move wherever, like you could sit over here, but then it's like what am I focusing on? Am I looking at the pictures? Am I looking at this? Am I looking at you? So if you're right in the middle, it's kind of like, okay, you're looking, but then a lot of other people are like, oh, they want to see more of me because I'm the person talking, so a lot of people will move back, but then that's also kind of distracting, and it's like you can see a lot more behind me. So I think it's pretty important to be up and close because that's the main focus. Like you're here to talk to me, I'm here to talk to you. So yeah, it's something like that. But I think there's also, if you have a fan or if you have something that's moving or something distracting. So if you had like a really busy picture in the background, like right behind me, and then it's me there, that can be distracting as well because it's just right there. So like even for you, like you have those two pillars kind of on the side or in the middle of your picture, and your head is like right in the middle of it, where it's like kind of in a frame. And if you were kind of like off to one side and the pillar was going right through your head, and then it's just like a dead space here, that can look a little odd as well. So it's kind of just like really looking at your background. It's like, oh, what fits, what doesn't fit. Even for me, like I have this door here, and it kind of goes through my head, and to me that bothers me because that's what I look at. But a lot of people wouldn't notice that. So it's kind of just like just realizing what's behind you and realizing what's distracting, what doesn't look good. So like for me, I could just go a little closer, and it kind of takes out more of that background, or even just moving over this way and turning the camera a little bit. Like there's lots of different ways that you can kind of mess with things.
It's amazing how much you like when you moved. So whoever's listening to this can't see this. So Aiden moved to the right of his frame. And when he did that, it was sort of like he was talking from the side. It felt totally different. Like when all of a sudden I was like, it was hard to, it's like, I don't know what the word is, but it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like we were having that coffee conversation. It felt something else. And then when you went all the way back, it was the same thing. It was almost like there was too much space between us. And so there's obviously there's a natural placement, and maybe it just comes from the more you do it, but just like it's like you're filling up the space, it seems, but you're not filling it up so much that it's like zoomed in super far, and you're not so far back that you can see your whole upper torso. You can just see your shoulders, your head, your hands when you're speaking, or if you're showing something, there's enough room on the sides to hold it up. And so that seems like a really like a good thing. The other thing you said that really so Aiden's actually been helping me with how I've been placing this camera as well. So I had it on the side wall, but there was two lights which I didn't even notice. But Aiden was like right away, like you got to move your position because those lights are really distracting. So the good news about the basement area is it's great for sound. The bad news is that the walls are not ideal for a background. So we'll figure that out. So
It looks great.
okay, perfect. Thanks. The other the other question I have then is, so people are there, they're placing themselves, they're positioning themselves, and they're great off camera. They feel so natural. They laugh. Like most people that like if you're like a real estate agent, you're gonna be naturally a super likable person. You know what I mean? You tell really funny jokes. You're really clever. They have like this sort of like really magnetic personality. People, and but then they go on camera, and it's like there's that moment where it's just like suddenly it doesn't feel the same. What are some tips that a person can have that helps them to really feel comfortable so they can convey their real just likability across on film?
Yeah, I think it's super important for anyone that has a business or is on camera. I think it's super important to be yourself, and you don't want to be on camera and act one way and off the camera and act a different way. Like that's not you, and that's not who you're trying to portray. And I think even for like as an example, like me and Jonathan before this podcast, we kind of had a conversation before anything started, and we were just like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about, and we just had a conversation. And I think a podcast or you talking to the camera or something like that is you having a conversation with somebody else, and keeping that in mind instead of just looking down your camera and seeing your face. It kind of feels weird because it's like it feels as though you're having a conversation with yourself, but that's not necessarily the case. So for me, like, I don't do a lot of talking on camera, but when I do talk on camera, it's a lot of, I look at you, Jonathan, and I'd be like, I'm having just a normal conversation with you. It'd be the same thing as though if I were to go out for coffee with you, and just have a conversation. But the biggest and hardest thing for people to overcome is the idea of not seeing yourself. Like there's not a mirror that you can look at and see you, because then it's just like you start thinking of, oh, is my hair good, or stuff like that, where it's like, is my collar fixed and stuff like that. So So I think like that's the hardest thing. So like on Zoom and any other platform you're using, usually you can pin different thing or different people to your screen. Basically meaning you can pin, like for me, I have it pinned as you're the main person I'm talking to, so you become a lot bigger than me in the bottom corner as my screen, so that I can look at you and have a conversation, and then I don't even see myself. So I don't know. It's really just having a conversation with the person you're trying to have a conversation with, and forget that you're not talking to anyone else. It's
I think the other thing on that is so we do these Zoom masterminds every week, and one thing I do notice is that the more people go to those masterminds, the like sometimes then the first time they'll meet, like they introduce themselves and like they're like, hey, this is my first one here, and you can tell they're still starting to feel comfortable with it. In a couple months, they look different, they talk different, they'll join from their car. It just feels way more
mhm,
comfortable, and it seems like just that repeated weekly exposure to the masterminds, being part of the Zoom, turning their camera on, is giving them really good practice.
mhm.
Another tip, I remember you sharing with me, actually, we were filming something and you stood behind the camera and you were like, talk to me. Don't worry about the camera. Uh, and I found that really helpful. Why does that work?
Yeah, and it's the same thing as a Zoom call. Like it's you're focusing on the person you're having a conversation with instead of you just talking to a camera. And if you just look at just a round circle of a camera lens and you're like, I'm just talking to that, just becomes a blank stare, and it becomes uncomfortable and unnatural. And so what me and Jonathan do when we are having any sort of interview or conversation and we're recording it is I'll put the camera to the side and I'll sit right beside the camera with a sheet of paper with questions on it or whatever it is, and I will just ask him questions. And I'll even ask him questions that are not even relevant to what we're trying to do. And just be like, oh, how was your weekend? And it just, you kind of, in a way, slowly start to forget that there's a camera there. And you just start asking those questions. And if you're editing the videos as well, you can kind of just like ask icebreaker questions in between of just like totally off subject, and then you get back into it. But then like when you become more comfortable with the environment and more comfortable with what you're doing, you can really just start asking questions back to back to back, and they just come across as more natural because they're more comfortable, and that just comes over time.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. If you were to pick a platform today, because the thing is that if you know a business owner, you've got so many hats you're wearing already. You're doing everything. You're doing planning for your um, you're doing your accounting. You're getting ready for Q4. You're trying to serve your client. You're doing customer support. You're doing everything, and so you really got to be wise with your time to have the biggest impact. If you were to pick one platform, if that's the place where you say, okay, this is where you should be investing your time in video, of the big three, which is YouTube, Instagram Reels, or TikTok, which of those three would you recommend investing your time and why?
That's a great question. Each platform definitely targets a different audience and different demographic. So TikTok is very much what I've realized is a lot younger audience. So there's a lot younger people on TikTok. It's the new trendy thing to do. And so it depends what your business is. I mean, if you're a realtor, I would say probably TikTok is not your best place to target. Instagram is definitely a lot older of a generation. There's older people on there. It's been around for way longer. And so if I would say it depends what you're wanting to do. I mean, YouTube is very much a long form content, and if you're wanting to do that, then great. And YouTube is definitely the place to do that. But I would say for you to grow an audience extremely quickly, I would definitely say Instagram Reels as a realtor would be your best spot.
It's funny as you were sharing that, it's starting to make sense. Like Instagram Reels, because with YouTube, you need a lot of prep work in there. People are expecting a
Hmm.
certain level of video now. And whereas
Yeah.
Instagram Reels, you can be short form like TikTok. So you can talk about one topic, you can talk about it off the cuff or on the fly. and but then it can also, you get the benefit of being able to distribute it now to Facebook as well. So that does make a lot of sense. Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. So if I'm getting into it for the first time and I don't have a platform that I'm already investing in, if you already have one, just double down on that. If that's, put your time and effort into the thing that you've already got momentum on. If you're starting from scratch, Instagram Reels. Great. So that's at
And I would definitely say, sorry to interrupt, but I would definitely say, like, if you start creating a platform that is doing really well, and you start getting tons of views, tons of followers on Instagram Reels, and you're like, you know what, this has been great. I've learned a lot. I've implemented things now that I wish I did on YouTube because I want to do longer form content. The nicest thing with, like, creating in one platform is now you can direct people from Instagram Reels now over to your YouTube. And it's like you can create a short-term video that still questions and asks that one question, like, are you wanting to sell your home in less than a month? Like a question like that, for example, and you start giving 2 or 3 tips on an Instagram Reel, and it's like, want to learn more? Follow me on YouTube. And then boom, if they want to learn more about that question that you just asked, they now have to go to your link in your profile that now takes you to your YouTube. Now you got a follower on YouTube. So it's like, if you really double down on one platform, they can really work I don't know, work together really.
Yeah, that that
So yeah,
that makes total sense. So that's taking it to another level, which is the strategic play, which is using Instagram for what it's great at. So you've now built a following there. And then as you start to grow out your YouTube channel, you can go more in depth on YouTube, and you can kind of, now you can use Instagram as the introduction to the long form content. And so people are just moving from Instagram to YouTube, which I find to be pretty seamless. Like
exactly.
these days, if I click on a video and it takes me to another platform, it just opens on my phone. I don't have a problem with that at all. That makes sense. Then for you, like, so where, like, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I've learned a lot. So basically, like, in summary, you talked about content really being the most important. Lighting is second. Audio, very important. You said, like, audio. And the funny thing is, I think, like, maybe because you're involving more of the senses when you are on video, because you're getting the audio, you're getting the visual component, you're also, yeah, it's just more engaging. It does seem like audio actually has a big impact on video. So yeah, so audio, lighting, content, placement, background. So just being aware, making sure the background's not distracting. You talked about, like, personality, including things like, there's probably going to be a bicycle around me wherever. I happen to actually have 3 bicycles in my basement. I got this one right here, which is my trainer. I got that one over there, which was on my trainer last week. And then the one behind me there, which is actually, I gave to a buddy of mine, and it's an old bicycle. It's a classic bike, and I didn't ever think I'd see it again. And then he actually called me up randomly and just was like, "Hey, I haven't been using it as much. Do you want it back?" And I thought, you know what, why not? Like, it's just like it's got good memories, sure. And so now it's back, and I do like cycling. And
That's
then of course
awesome.
my longboard over there, which I built, like, dating myself here, but I built that, 19 20 years ago.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And a funny story is that the trucks and wheels on it now, that was actually a wedding gift from some friends, like 15 years ago. So that's that's funny.
Crazy.
Just shows, just that is crazy. Life goes on.
Oh, it sure does.
Yeah, it does. The But yeah, so where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, a little bit of YouTube. But I think this last, like, I mean, just getting back from my accident and stuff, I've definitely been focusing on a lot of my own video, like the documentary, really trying to finalize what the story is and figure that out. So a lot of my time is going there, and then work, and then mostly just Instagram is my biggest thing. I've got a couple videos on TikTok, but not a whole lot. And then, yeah, I would say Instagram, which is just Aiden Fedds. So yeah, that's about it. Aiden Fedds is pretty.
Aiden Fedds.
Aiden Fedds, which is basically on.
Fedds.
Yep. Aiden, Aidan, and then Fedds, and that's basically my name on all social platforms.
If you want to go get inspired, see some really powerful photography, some great video, go check out Aiden Fedds. And then I should clarify that wedding gift wasn't the wedding gift for my wife and myself. That was just a private gift that my buddies gave me just for fun. For everyone listening and be like, that's a weird wedding gift. That would be very weird. Yeah. So yeah, that's a wrap.
Let's go.